We'd like to welcome everyone here who is here. It is August 25th, 2026, 4:03. This is the Board of Education meeting, special meeting for the purpose of interviewing for District 1 vacancy. We're going to begin by indicating who's here. Julie, will you begin, please?
Julie Jackson.
Kim Chandler.
Connie Burgess.
Chris Wynn.
Karen Winder.
Clark Nelson.
Todd Hubbard.
Ben Horsley.
Nicole McDermott. All right, the way we are going to run this is we have our first interview starting at 4:15. We'd like to make sure that you guys are all aware, first of all, our public is aware that we do have a scoring rubric that we're using. We have put this on. Each of us will not be able to see each other's scores for each candidate. We will just see our own and be able to deliberate on our own. At the end of the meeting, we will take a little bit of a break so that we can look at scores, and we will have a short discussion to make sure that we're able to share whatever our thoughts are with the candidates that we've heard tonight. And then at the end, we will also about the candidates, yes, sorry, about the candidates. And then we will also have an opportunity to update any scores. I will get together with Ben and we'll look at the scores and then invite the top candidates back that we would like to see next week for a second interview. That will be discussed. We can discuss that.
I would just reiterate that that will be based on the rubric. So you'll have a chance to review your scores at the end and make sure they match and reflect your desires before we input those into the system and have it pump out those candidates.
I remember when we interviewed for the superintendent, we kind of saw a natural break as to where we wanted. Ideally, it would be 2, but maybe it could be 3. So we can have that discussion, part of that discussion after. We do not have the Pledge of Allegiance on the agenda, but we probably should. So, Amy, do you want to come up and do it for us? We're going to invite Amy. Use that microphone right there.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just so the public is aware also, we do have set questions that we determined before, and every candidate will have the same exact questions asked of them. Everybody will get 12 minutes to answer, and a timer will be provided. We have spaced the interviews out every 15 minutes, just so that we have enough time to get people in here and get settled and move them on. Are there any questions, board? Okay. We have a few minutes before the first one, so.
I do have one quick question. Are we allowing an opening statement from them, or are we just going right into
we were just going
the
right
4
into it.
questions? Okay.
Is everyone logged in to their, okay.
Yes.
Now we're going to have our leadership go and sit down there so that it's not quite as intimidating. You guys obviously stay. Okay, if anybody needs to grab a drink or anything right now, now's the time.
Do some stretching. Karaoke.
Yeah. Julie, grab the mic. got your reading glasses.
It's just.
Are you ready? I'm just gonna make sure he knows the date time.
Yes, I can swear that one.
Seriously, Ben and Todd take up so much room. You guys are the worst.
Well, I feel bad because I like get all my stuff out and it's all over the place. I have to apologize to Chris. Sorry for infringing on your right.
What did you just do? It smells amazing.
It's just nail lotion.
Stop. My husband hates it. And so he will so I just never buy it. And it's so sad. It's like I go to Bath and Body Works. I'm like, that's step in here. Theirs isn't the best.
Specialty stores, I guess.
I'm starving.
How was
I'm
it,
so
Shelley?
glad we had that 5 minutes.
Was that good?
That was delicious. Another thing my husband hates is potato salad. I never have it. Man, this guy's running my life. Just kidding. So that was especially good. That's where I started.
Yeah, those taste better when you're That's my yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Is there one or the other that I'm supposed to?
Just as long as it's one. Pull.
I watched you do this enough that I feel like I should know how to move this.
I like the double.
I feel very, very important right now.
Welcome. We're happy to have you.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm going to read this for you just because every candidate will have the same thing.
Okay.
Granite School District's boundary includes approximately 400,000 residents and serves 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think will get to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided right there so that you can monitor the length of your responses. Okay?
Okay.
First of all, we want to make sure that we introduce. This is Amber Book.
Awesome.
And that's what the timer sounds like. What it sounds
Do you
like.
often hear that after your name?
No, but I like it. I'm not mad at it.
All right. Go ahead and start. So number 1, the board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
Thank you for having me first. My both professional and my personal life gives me a lot of background. I am a mother. I'm a PTA member. I'm a soccer coach for our youth here in Granite School District, as well as a small business owner. A small little background on me, my husband and I decided to relocate to Salt Lake City where he grew up so that we could raise our children in the same district as he went through, which was Granite School District. And we are living the dream and our kids are thriving. My son is in Churchill Junior High and my twin daughters are at Oak Ridge Elementary. I believe that my grassroots and my boots on the ground mentality that I have served in my community thus far will help with my communication to my constituents. I feel that that's my best asset I can provide as a board member. I, as a coach, understand teamwork, and I understand that we as a board work together to solve big, small, hard, simple, whatever you want to call it, decisions, but we work as a team. And at the end of the day, I believe that I'm a team player, and I understand how important that is to communicate, listen, and provide feedback when necessary. I hope, and my goal is that I can be a partner for you all, that we can sound off ideas and communicate back everything to our constituents and our parents and our families so that we can have the best success possible in this district.
Thank you. Question number 2, what would your goals be and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
So as a board member, my main goal would be back to that communication. I think that's so important that my constituents and families and my neighbors understand what's going on. We have some hard decisions that are coming up in this next year, and you all have had a lot of hard decisions to make in dealing with different parents and different personalities and disagreements and agreements with your decisions. I would hope that I can be as transparent with everyone in my precinct as Julie has been for us thus far, and I can hold that for my neighbors and my families.
Thank you. Number 3, what are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
That is a great question, especially since you just had that big meeting on the 18th. I come with empathy both as a taxpayer and a business owner, so I understand that there are difficulties when swallowing a change in what you're going to be putting out of your pocketbook. I also understand that our WPU, although we got more this past year isn't exactly meeting with our inflation and our fixed costs that are going to continue to go up. So I would be transparent again with my communication with everybody in my precinct, but I would also have the courage to vote with the math.
Okay, and then finally, Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
So when our last study happened and it ended in February of 2026, I wouldn't say a loud voice in that, but I was very involved. I came to many of your board meetings, watched things from home. I found that that must be one of the most difficult decisions as a board to have to process and to make. Knowing that we're going to be continuing with a study in 2027 and those potentials are real, that we might have to make boundary changes, closing of schools. I would hope that with my transparency and my clear communication with my precinct is that they would understand we're coming from the best place possible and trying to achieve greatness for our educators and our students so that everyone can reach that excellence in the Granite School District.
Thank you. You still have a few minutes remaining. And the time remaining, is there anything that you were not able to add to any of those questions that we asked that you'd like to add?
I come with a lot of passion. I think that I would be a good fit for this. I really enjoy what you all do. I watch you closely. I think you're amazing individuals, and it takes a lot of courage and a lot of hours that you put in, and I appreciate it, and I understand that the hard work would be placed upon my shoulders if given the opportunity to take the seat, and I'm ready to do that. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. The most qualified candidates, just so you know, will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for these interviews will be extended within the next day. Excuse me. The candidate selected for the position will officially be appointed during the general board meeting convened later the evening of our board meeting. And then the commencement of the date will be January 1st, just so you're aware of that date if you're not already.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hey, Ben, can you see if Chris is submitted? Can you look real fast? Or
Can
Tyler?
you see if my score's submitted?
Tyler,
Thank
okay,
you.
Thank you.
I hit submit, but then I went on the link instead of do another one, so, sorry.
You can't see Connie or Karen? Hey, Karen, did you submit your score already?
Oh, sorry. I put them in, I didn't hit submit.
Okay, thank you.
I haven't hit submit yet.
Tyler, thanks for organizing
He's the
this
disruptor.
structure.
I'm just holding my breath on this first one to make sure it works. After that, I won't hold my breath.
You can go in and change it by the
I
way
know
you
that.
enter. Okay, all right, just
Yeah, y'all just gotta chill on my name,
I just
as they say.
chill on your name.
Tyler,
Sorry.
Tyler, I just wanted to say thank you for this, setting up this awesome structure. It's really helpful.
Your kids are all, your kids are Gen X.
Chill on my name? So chill on my name.
They say something else their time, but I don't know where that is. I'm here.
I'm also going to trade off with Chris and let her read half of them, you guys, just so you know.
Thought I wear my glasses.
It's just that Chris is so intimidating.
Chris is intimidating.
It's true, because everyone feels like you're just long from the minute. I know, it's such a beautiful quality. I don't think you're scary off the front. You have to get to know you to know that you can put your foot down. You know what I mean? Huh?
Ask my kid.
It worked this time. It came through.
Wait, we're making this part, all of them, and then I'll do the questions, and then. Oh. Make sure they get that. Well, and I did do another. What did it say when I came back up? Now it's not saying it. It said submit another, do another response. And I was like, but I didn't know that was to go to the. So it logged me off for a second. I don't want you to try to go through it.
I remember exactly that these guys are being handed the questions 15 minutes prior,
As they show up.
but anyway, later they could have heard on here.
Technically.
I coughed back, you guys.
Hi. Hi, Erin.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. We're so happy to have you. I'm going to be reading a statement, and then we're going to ask 4 questions that we've asked all the candidates. Granite School District's boundaries includes approximately 400,000 residents and serves some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided during your interview so you can monitor the length of your responses. It's right up there. Okay, does that sound good?
Okay.
All right, let's start. Question number 1. The board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
There we go. Okay.
Sorry.
Just want to make sure. Okay. Yeah, I think the biggest things that I can bring that are strengths would be my ability to build relationships and my communication skills. I have been in project management for almost 20 years. That's a field where I've had to learn how to communicate with various people, meet people where they are, and building relationships being like the key starting point. You can't just expect trust from the get-go. You have to build that trust, build a relationship before you can ever expect something from people. And then I think collaboration, I think, is the key thing here. I don't have any formal education experience, but I think that's why the board is so great, is that we would have to collaborate together. And people on the board who have that in-classroom expertise, you know, we can lean on that expertise when we need it. And then, you know, I can bring project management, organization, and my own set of skills, and we can work together to, you know, get what needs to be done.
Thank you. The next question. What would your goals be, and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
Personally, I am a product of Utah Public Schools from kindergarten through earning an MBA at the University of Utah. Public schools are critical to the success of our communities, and I want to make sure that the opportunities that I was given through our public school system is available to all the generations to come. I personally have always had a desire for public service and holding public office, but it's always been just sort of a desire, and more recently there's a strong pull. Something is telling me I need to get more involved. I want to make a difference every day. I want to be part of the solution in finding, you know, smart fiscal solutions. How do we do what we can with what we've got, making the most of it. And I know that takes hard decisions, and but I think it's so important, and I would love to be a part of that.
Next question. What are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
The way the state of Utah has set up funding for public schools is through property taxes. And I understand, I mean, the school board is not in charge of changing that, right? You have to work within those rules and laws that have been put in place by the state legislature. So knowing that that's sort of set, then do the best you can with, you know, what has been set by, you know, the other groups in charge. So so I understand, like, that is taxation. I attended the public hearing last week about truth in taxation. I heard the public comment, and it's hard. Like, I get it, asking people to pay more taxes. No one wants to hear that. No one really wants to pay more taxes. But I understand that's how it's been set up in the state of Utah. So we have to work with what we've got.
Okay, last question. Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
I am a very data-driven person. While obviously I would have an emotional response if it came out that, you know, my neighborhood school where my kid goes needs to be closed. Obviously, I'm a human. But I am very data driven, and I think the approach that's been taken to have an independent group come in and do a study is a really smart way to go. I think it can help take some of those feelings out of it, and hopefully will provide just the data, the numbers, what do we actually see as trends over the next 10, 20 plus years, to really help make those decisions, to try and pull as much emotion out of it as we possibly can, so we can just focus on the facts, the numbers, and hopefully, if it can come from a place of, you know, information, logic, data, that it can be a little bit easier for people to process and move forward.
Okay, you still have a little time. Is there anything you'd like to add that you would like the board to know?
Just open. I do want to highlight my experience on the board of my child's daycare. I've been on the board for 3.5 years. I was the president for 2 years. And while it is small in comparison to a whole Granite School District, it gave me insight into what it takes to run with small budgets, with child safety and education as the top priority. And it's hard. There's challenging things that come up. Parents have a lot of opinions, and but being able to be part of that and make it feel like you're really making a difference with how the development of our children. I really want to take this to the next level, scale what I've learned, and be able to make a bigger difference. But I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. I just have a statement. The most qualified candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for those interviews will be extended within the upcoming days. The candidate selected for the position will be officially appointed during the general board meeting convened later that evening. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st, 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and take oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th, 2027. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I did it twice, 3 times. Just because I know they need something like that. So how do we return that?
I'm just saying the same.
Welcome. This is Benjamin Ungrich.
Ungrich, correct. You said it perfectly.
Almost perfect.
Nope, you're great.
Okay, thank you for being here. I have a statement to read, and then I will go ahead and read the questions for you.
Okay.
Granite School District's boundary includes approximately 400,000 residents and serves some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think get to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided during your interview so that you can monitor the length of your responses, and the timer will be right there. Okay?
Okay.
All right, number 1, the board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
So let me first just introduce myself. I am Ben Ungrich, and I would like to thank you for the time this evening that you are taking to listen to me and to the other 11 people applying for this this position that's open. I am a product of Granite School District. My wife and I and all of my kids have flowed through Wasatch and Skyline. And so I have lived here my whole life. So I'm aware that there's a lot of tough decisions that need to be made as a board member, and some decisions that are made are not easily favorable by some people, but still tough decisions need to be made. So to answer your question specifically, I think one of my strengths, I think, is I've been a member of the board of directors at Granite Credit Union for a little over 30 years. So during my service there, I have been chairman of the board, and as being a board member with any organization, there's limited resources, and there's, like I said, there's tough decisions that need to be made. There's a balancing act between all the different needs that arise. And so I know that the board needs to function together to make decisions for the entire district. I think a board strength is where everybody doesn't have to necessarily be the same. I think vigorous discussion and different opinion brings out better outcomes, But I think when a decision is made as a board member, I have learned by being on a board that when a decision is made, you need to support that decision, even though it may not be the outcome you wanted, but you need to support that and move forward. I've also learned that as a board member, you're not there to micromanage. I mean, you're there to oversee policy, to oversee the budget, and that you are to give input and direction, but you are not there to micromanage. Of course, one of your most important jobs as a board member is you hire the superintendent of the district. But like I said, I think my experience with serving on a board and my experience of being a businessman in the community and working with people is one of my strengths. I think one thing as a board member, you need to be transparent and open-minded and be open to public input, especially the parents. I mean, the reason why I want to be on the board is because I want to be able to, I'm kind of short. The reason why I want to be on the board is because I want children to succeed. And so my whole purpose is wanting children to succeed, but to do that, you have to have teachers that are engaged and happy. You need to have fair salaries. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Thank you. What would your goals be, and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
You know, I will honestly say I'm not an expert in education. One thing that I think is an advantage for me is I'm retired, and so I will have plenty of time to learn and to catch up with all those things that I need to learn. But I think the main way that you would support students' achievements and outcomes is you need to track measurable outcomes. Some of those would include graduation, statistics, also, test scores. As a board member, you want to try to close the gap between those who are failing and those who are succeeding. And one thing that I feel strongly about is that, there's a lot of diversity in Granite School District, and that's great. Diversity brings strength. But I think we need to remember that there's a segment of the population out there that just kind of doesn't have a leg up, and they struggle. It reminds me of my grandfather, who grew up in Carbon County, who dropped out of the school in 3rd grade because he spoke German and he was teased. He didn't understand English. And he did not learn how to read and write until he married my grandmother, who was a school teacher. It always baffles me that my grandmother, being a school teacher, graduating from Brigham Young Academy at the time, would marry somebody who couldn't read and write. But she taught him how to read and write. But my grandfather, great man, but he was severely limited in in what he could do to support his family. And so, and then I'm a product of, I know that education is the gateway out of poverty. I just think of my education. I was fortunate enough to go to Skyline. I was accepted to the early admissions program at the University of Utah, so I left Skyline after my junior year. I graduated with my bachelor's degree from the University of Utah when I was 19. And all of that was made possible by my education at Granite School District. So in supporting, students' achievements and outcomes, if you were to ask me specifically today how that's done, honestly, I don't know the answer, but I know it's through, tracking metrics and tracking, graduation rates and doing all those things that you need to do to try to fine tune, the educational process to be effective for everyone.
Number 3, what are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
I know that last month there was, you had meetings about raising the property taxes, and nobody in this room likes paying more taxes, and nobody likes paying taxes. Everybody wants a great education, but they don't want to pay for it. I recognize that funding for the school comes from three main sources: the state, and they do that weighted average pupil amount that they give districts. There's also the property taxes, and then there's some money that comes in from the federal government. There's also a lot of other little things like the Granite Education Foundation, which helps support the district. But I know that through these three main tax revenue sources, it's inevitable that the taxes will be raised and that people's tax money will be used for education. Let me just say, I know that the revenue streams sometimes are the spigots kind of shut on and off, with the state funding and federal funding. And unfortunately for the board and for the for the superintendent and his team, you have to try to balance everything when maybe the federal government cuts back on some funding here and there, and you guys are scrambling to try to make up for areas which aren't being funded anymore, or et cetera, et cetera. But I know that taxation is it's the three-legged stool that that public education is financed through. So it's a delicate balancing act. Everything that we're talking about is a balancing act. I mean, you can't be a proponent 100% for one aspect of education and disregard everything else. I mean, you need to take all the information available to you and make a decision. And like I said, there's give and take.
All right, number 4, Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
Well, the reality is the schools need to be closed. When I was growing up in Granite School District, the district was growing every year. Kids were in pods, portable classrooms, and Granite couldn't build buildings fast enough. And parents were clamoring for more buildings, and now we're on the downward decline. Nobody likes to have a neighborhood school closed. And the reality is being on the east side, I know that this was brought up last year, and it's a tough decision, but the reality is financially, this is where it's a balancing act. Financially, the district cannot operate schools that don't have the minimum amount of students to run it effectively. Actually, too, smaller schools, in all reality, and some of this is education to the parents if they listen, but the reality is when you have classrooms and grades that have, maybe 1 or 1.5 classes, I mean, the education is better with the school that has economies of scale that's a little bit bigger. The reality is the schools will be closed. Nobody likes it, and whoever gets this position is going to be the bad guy, and because schools will have to be closed, and it's just a matter of a declining enrollment. And just looking at the decline, I mean, looking over that 10-year period in last year's budget, it's like a 20% decline. I was surprised when I saw that.
Thank you. You've got about a minute left. Is there anything that you'd like to add to any of the questions that we've already asked you?
No, I'll just say a little bit more about myself. So again, I'd like to thank you for the time in considering my my application for this. Being on the board it's basically all about the children and trying to give them opportunities to succeed. Unfortunately, some children and parents don't take that, don't take the advantage of the opportunities that are given to them. But at the same time, I realize that you need to have motivated teachers. You need to have teachers that feel like they're appreciated, that are paid well. You need to make sure you have enough money for facilities. So as I've said multiple times, this is all a balancing act, and tough decisions will be made. Like I said, I think, coming up this next year, school closures will come up again. And somebody has to be the bad guy, and serving on a board, I've been the bad guy before, and you just do what is best for the overall students, and when I say the overall students, I mean for the whole district. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much. Just so you know, the top candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for those interviews will be extended within the next day. The candidates selected for the position will be officially appointed during the general board meeting convened later on the evening of September 1st. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st of 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and will take the oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for your time.
Hi, welcome.
Oh.
Are we good, board? Okay. Hi, welcome. Hannah Paisley Zulik, is that correct? Okay. I'm just going to read a statement first.
Okay.
Granite School District's boundaries include approximately 400,000 residents and serve some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question, and you will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided during your interview so you can monitor the length of your responses. I will be reading for the 4 questions, and we'll start.
All right.
Okay. The board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
I think one of the unique things that I would bring to this space is I am a student, and I've been a student for 2 decades. I continue to take classes to this day up at the University of Utah. I graduated from Ames and Cottonwood High School, and I believe that gives me a perspective that might not always be present otherwise. I grew up with technology. It has been part of my life since before I could talk and before I could walk. I have had it in my classrooms since, I believe, kindergarten. And it's different, I think, than life used to be without technology and without having grown up in these spaces. I know that device policies in classrooms are one of the most important issues we can address right now. And I think in order to do that, we need to have a way to connect with students and communicate with students, because if we don't have students on board with our device policies, we're not going to be able to make them as effective as we otherwise could be. For example, we have the pockets at Granger that students currently put their cell phones in, and I have several friends at Granger and have done some volunteer work there, and I know of at least 4 separate ways students have to get around that policy because they've been told no and not necessarily why, and they're not on board with it as much. So I believe that I could bring a voice in connecting with these students and asking a different set of questions than might otherwise be asked. I also think that I am uniquely positioned because I served for 2 years on the Student Advisory Council for the State Board of Education. So I have done a good bit of work in this space already, and I understand a lot of the issues that will come before this board and have done a lot of this work, and I don't know that many students can say that. to bring both the perspective of a student and the knowledge of how to actually do the work and the experience of having done that work.
Next question. What would your goals be, and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
My goal, and I know this is probably a little bit trite, is to make life better for students and make their lives as easy as possible. One specific way I would like to do this is through helping take care of student mental health. I did some work with this when I was on the Student Advisory Committee. We were able to add a mental health training for teachers to the teacher relicensure software that was then Midas and I think now is Altitude. That just gives teachers a base understanding of how to navigate different mental health conditions. And I know we already do a lot of this work with regards to suicide prevention trainings, and that's great. I would not have graduated high school with all of my friends alive without these trainings. But I do think that like suicide prevention is not the only mental health training that I think can benefit teachers. And I'm not trying to turn teachers into mental health professionals by any stretch of the imagination. That is a concern that I often get when I bring this up. But I think it will actually make teachers' jobs easier to have some kind of knowledge and background in this space. If a student is having a panic attack in the hallway and a teacher doesn't know what to do with that or doesn't recognize it and ends up, say, yelling at the student because they see it as acting out and not a panic attack, that can have a significant impact on trust between that student and that teacher, between any other of the students that are in that space and the teacher, and I think adds stress to everybody involved. So that would be one specific thing I would like to see done differently. As for my role as a potential board member, I believe that is to listen and to ask questions, and to ask questions from my perspective that might not be questions that occur to other people. I strive to walk into every situation open to changing my mind. I have my opinions, and I am not 100% certain that I'm right on anything that I think. I think it's my job to listen to everybody's perspective, to find information, seek that out if I have to, and then consider all of that and balance opinions in making a final decision.
Thanks. Number 3, what are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
I believe that public education is fundamentally necessary, and as anything that is fundamentally necessary, it has to be funded. Sometimes I wish that we could have infinite money and just ignore the economic implications of having infinite money, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Unfortunately, I know that's not actually how society works. And I know we get money from from the state and from grants, and I know that's often specified in how we use. I do believe that taxation is necessary to fill in the rest of the budget. I know the Granite Education Foundation does some fundraising for us. I would be interested in seeing if there's ways to do more of that. I certainly believe in being conscious of what we spend, but I don't believe in doing that at the expense of programs that are helpful to students or that make students' lives better. I remember being in music classes at my high school and my elementary school, and it was one of the best spaces I ever spent time in. It is where I had friends. It was what got me to show up to class in the mornings, and it was a life-changing experience, honestly, and that is the kind of thing I don't want to see us lose as we try to navigate funding challenges and figuring out how to fund unfunded mandates from the legislature, like adding fencing, is just another concern on this that has to be navigated. I will say I've been following the budget proposal for this coming year, and I noticed the assistant principal or admin intern and the instructional coach support that we had been testing out at the Boost schools that saw improvement at 7 of the 8 of the schools, and I am excited to see what outcomes we get from that as we expand that.
Okay. Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
I mean, I don't think it's just Granite District that's facing that. I work in the registrar's office up at the University of Utah, and we talk about this weekly, if not more often, often referring to it as the enrollment cliff in higher education. And I don't think it's just Utah either that we're seeing this. And I think what that tells us is it's not going to change, and I think we all know that. So seeking more students or getting students to come back to Granite School District from private schools or charter schools is important, but there's only a finite number of students. And so I don't think all of our resources can go into that. I do think some schools are probably going to have to close in the foreseeable future. I know the research on small schools that suggests that students sometimes do better at not small schools because of a lot of reasons. I attended a small school for the first 11 years of my schooling, and in addition to the instructional difficulties that come with having one teacher for an entire grade of students, I also struggled finding friends in a smaller group because there just weren't that many options for me to choose from. I know that it also saves a significant amount of money to close schools, with the $600 to $1 million in operating costs, and I hope that that is something that can give that as we consolidate schools, that can give students better experiences. I look forward to seeing the updated data on student performance at the schools that we've closed recently. I know we have seen an improvement in performance in a lot of areas already, and should that continue, I would be very open to considering closing specific schools. I want to see the results of the study that the consultant is doing that was recently hired. I think they will have some good insights in that space. I think that the program the board has set up to work on transitioning students to new schools and helping them feel welcome when they move is going to be vital to this. I think after we begin closing, after we close a school and we see the results of that particular group, since we haven't actually gotten to see it in action yet, I think that will give us interesting data when it comes to closing schools as well. And yeah, I look forward to seeing how that can make students' lives better in a lot of ways. I don't think it's a decision to be taken lightly. I know that it affects students and families and teachers in fundamental ways, but I think it is going to be necessary going forward.
Is there anything you would like to add to anything we asked, any of the questions we asked?
I don't think so. Did I answer all of y'all's questions? Is there anything else I can answer for you?
I think we're good. Okay, I just have a statement then. Okay. The top candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for these interviews will be extended within the next day. The candidate selected for the position will be officially appointed during the general board meeting convened later that evening on September 1st. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st, 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and take oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th, 2027.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
a tiny bit. Hi, how are you? Courtney, tell me how you say your last name.
Vitches?
Vitches? Okay, I wasn't sure. I didn't want to mispronounce it, so. Thank you for being here. Granite School District's boundary includes approximately 400,000 residents and serves some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided during your interview so that you can monitor the length of your responses. Number 1, the board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
Sure thing. So I have been working in software for the last 10 years. I'm a software engineer, educator, presenter, and recently STEM volunteer for for the local elementary. My abilities that I think would benefit the board is my critical thinking skills, my ability to stress test narratives, identify plot holes in data graphs. My thoughts are open-minded until the logic and reasoning has been presented otherwise. I think right now we live in an era of technology that I think it can easily crunch. Like, we have 80 plus schools in the Granite School District that I think it could take an average and we can create data points and use software to surface both the outliers, so we can attend to where is the boat leaking, and we can also keep the ship on its course. Yeah.
Right, number 2, what would your goals be and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
Let's see. So Granite falls below average of state average in terms of their early learning proficiency scores. Their English, their science, their math, all across is just slightly below state performance. I would identify the bottlenecks of the schools that are falling behind, because it is an average. There's going to be schools that are excelling and schools that aren't. So I would focus on the ones that aren't and bringing them up. What are they missing? Is it understaffing? Is it qualifications of the teachers? Are they being overworked? Do they not have enough coaching? Is it there's just this, something going on with the students? Are they not being well supported in the education? Are they being given the advantages they should have to learn? It's not about taking a test and just, okay, I can test well. It's about the critical thinking skills. It's about working together as a class and as a reflection of their community. What these kids are is beyond just, kids or children. It's the potential for a better quality of life for adults that are up and coming. I am hoping that technology will enable and empower the kids because it's not about what people know. They can easily Google it. I want to see kids critically thinking. It's, why is it like a 75% average or 48%? There's always a story data tells, and understanding and stress testing what could that be. And being able to communicate effectively across I think is paramount. And they should be learning that early. And so that blends social skills, it blends art, being creative, and it blends logic and reasoning. So teaching those foundational skills, I think, will help improve. And whatever that takes, I would be a proponent of, particularly STEM and art.
Number 3, what are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
Yes, I think this is inevitable. I think ideally I would love to see more of an income tax being done through the state level to collect the finances needed to fund our schools, ideally, because then we get to promote provide a better quality of life for retirees. And it's not something that's like a local district school board needs to take, because that's based off of property taxes. I would go to the state board and ask them that they increase or be proponents of the income taxes, and divide and allocating that appropriately. That's number 1. That's how I feel about that. But I think in terms of the public levies, let's see. It's a demand and supply, because we have a specific region to take care of, and granted it's like a belt across the west and the east side, and it's very large, and so I think it requires just very careful consideration and studying it. That's probably the biggest proponent of the job in and of itself, is like the fun is the budgeting and how to balance the books with and then use that property tax to make up for what perhaps wasn't as efficient from that previous year, or certain extenuating circumstances. So that's what I do.
Number 4, Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
Closing schools, I think, are kind of a direct result of the birth rate, but I think it's going to become more pronounced in the upcoming years. And so closing schools will, I think, happen naturally because of that. But I think there's more to it than just declining enrollments. It must be understood that it's the birth rate, but also, yes, it's that parents and families everywhere might be losing trust in the public education system. They attend the truth and taxation meetings, year over year, and it's the budgets and how it's allocated. Everyone has an opinion, but I think that parents aren't being heard or understood, and that, and like I said, this kind of goes back with like the taxes. It's people want to know where the money is going at. I think that's where people really start to feel combative at. So how do we give parents more power in the educational system is how I would approach it, and give them more confidence. So I would personally do more open houses and open school nights. That way we get to kind of sell them on what they are buying into, whether they agree to it, or it's through taxes, and hopefully we get to convince them that it's better than homeschooling. It's going to free up more time for the mom or the dad to pursue career. I think life is so purposeful. So anyways, but that's I want to see more ALC programs. I love to see open houses. The budgeting, I think, has been great. It's every month, up until crescendo. I think test scores, I think that's going to help with the, how we can prevent schools from closing. I also do think that the charter school system is very good, where they have to have students, perform at a specific level, otherwise it's closed, and that it does feel like everyone has like skin in the game, and if they don't perform, then it's kind of, it really is our neck, like the teachers and the necks on the line, like there are necks on the line, so how can we better support those teachers from, not feeling like every day is like a fight for their life. It's helping and supporting. So I think, I think open houses are great because we get to, have a two-way conversation with parents and hopefully, have more volunteers, more support for PTA clubs, and being able to, have two-way conversations, not just once a month. So, I think in order for schools to be not closed, they need to have these components. These are critical components and pillars that, like ALC programs. Are they doing advanced learning curriculums? Are they showing that by attending this school, it's not just unattending a school and making them like a drone? We are trying to teach them like ALC, AP, IB. It's how are we preparing the students to, think ahead. And we need to display that to the parents. They are the ones that we need to be convincing. And the kids, it's how do we talk to them? How do we identify complex topics at a very early age? That way when they start to get older, they can start to understand what education really affords them. It's not just a degree. It's not just a high school diploma. It's like I said earlier, it's the potential to better their quality of life as adults. That's what education ends up boiling down to. So by preparing them with a well-rounded education and showing them that we're challenging them so that way they can identify where their strengths and weaknesses are, I think is going to give parents confidence that this school is worth taking my homeschool child out, because I can't convince that I don't know enough about AP, IB, chemistry. I got a degree in computer science, but maybe my kid has that. So there's going to be specific limitations that homeschool children will miss out on, even like the education, like the programs. We hone in on that. I think will convince more students out, or more parents to get their children in. Those extracurriculars is very important. The critical thinking. So yeah, the open house is where we get to display most of that. Budgeting's been great, and then, just improving the test scores all around, because we should be, I think Granite can be above the state, be that idyllic school for everyone, so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Just so you know, the top candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for those interviews will be extended within the next day. The candidate selected for the position will be officially appointed during the board meeting. The general board meeting convened later on that same evening of September 1st. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st, 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and will take the oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th, 2027. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you need some? Except I'm reading, so maybe I better wait.
Yeah, where are they?
Connie, I have to put it to you.
Hi. Allison Armstrong?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Granite School District's boundary includes approximately 400,000 residents and serves some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided during your interview so you can monitor the length of your responses. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, first question. The board. Sorry, Trinity.
Just kidding.
I know it's loud. Okay. The board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
Well, first, I'd like to say that I absolutely love public education. I feel like free public education for our entire society makes for a better society. And I think it's really good for all of the kids in our area to have such a great public education with Granite. So I have been involved in public education as a volunteer and a stakeholder for 14 years. I have had various leadership positions throughout the district as a volunteer, and I have worked with various communities like Cottonwood High School area, Olympus High School area, Skyline High School area, and a little bit in Kearns area. So I feel like I have a good understanding of what's going on and what our resources need to go to. I have a lot of leadership experience and a lot of experience working in nonprofit with diverse boards and diverse populations. And I think that is a specific qualification that would help me work together with everyone on the board here from different areas and with different priorities, and communicate and make sure that we're all listening to each other and transparent with our community. I have written budgets, awards, and grants for nonprofits, and so I understand that fiscal responsibility is incredibly important. Our stakeholders have a lot riding on the kind of education that we provide at Granite District. And I think we provided a very good education. I feel really strongly that family engagement is a huge predictor of student outcomes. And I think that it would be great if Granite District could increase the amount of family engagement that it offers.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right. What would your goals be, and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
So I think I've got three main goals that are interconnected. I, like I said, would like to strengthen family engagement. I think that not only does it provide better outcomes for students when their families are engaged in their education, but I think that our schools are part of our community, and strengthening our family engagement in our schools will strengthen our communities around the schools. I think that we need to have more communication. I know Granite communicates quite a bit now. I do think that it's been very effective, and I also think that we could do a little more. I would like to use communication to strengthen public trust in our schools. I think that that has been something that people have a hard time with, the amount of communication that comes out of Granite and filtering through to see what actually is important to their families. So I think that having different forms of communication, I've loved the social media communication that you've done. I do think that when parents are driving around with their kids, you know, from 3 o'clock to 10 p.m. in the evening, they can't read emails or social media posts. I think having something like public YouTube versions or podcast versions of community council meetings would help those parents, because they could tap in and listen as they're driving around. And it might help. I know that all different kinds of people have all different kinds of communication that works for them, but I think that that is one area that may need strengthening. I think that we have a big responsibility for fiscal responsibility. I think we need to be very careful with the tax dollars and very transparent with how we use those tax dollars, so we can direct them into more proven programs for kids that have better outcomes. I think that family engagement, communication, fiscal responsibility are all linked to student achievement. So I guess before we use any of these, I would like to see the research on student achievement and what has worked and what hasn't worked, and collaborate with, you know, everyone in the district, the administration who's, you know, highly educated, the board, and collaborate to see what would be the best for our kids, our students.
What are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
I think adequate funding is an investment in our community. I think Utah is a very successful state at this point, and that is because of public education. I think besides being an investment in our community, it's an investment in our future. And I think we need to demonstrate that we are using the money effectively. And that goes back to transparency, which Granite has already been very good with. But I think you can always have more transparency. I think that we could eliminate duplication. I think when the Granite Foundation partnered with the Utah Food Bank, instead of having two different food, you know, sources, I think that the partnership helped eliminate some of the fiscal responsibility. And so I think we can do that with other groups, in nonprofit groups in our area. And maybe, so we don't, we aren't, you know, reinventing or redoing the same things. We can partner with other groups and share the fiscal responsibility before we use more tax dollars, or we could at least look at that. I think when we look at the benefit to our students, if we can, oh, sorry.
That's not the timer.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay, thanks. If we can just research, eliminate duplication, make it, look at all of the things that are making our students have more favorable outcomes that are more efficient. Look at the benefit to the families and students, pursue partnerships with our community services. If all of those things won't make it better, won't make our student outcomes better, I think then
yes, we may need to look at asking for more money from the legislature or having to potentially, consciously, responsibly raise taxes from the community.
Okay. Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
So I think ultimately we need to have good student outcomes. The kids are the reason we're all here and doing this. I think that with the enrollment projection numbers that I last saw, it looks like the birth rate is declining. I think that closing any schools throughout the district should be a last resort. Schools are often more to a neighborhood and a community than just a building. They are, part of the heart of a neighborhood and part of the identity of a neighborhood. So I think that instead of, immediately closing schools, I think the studies that the district has done in the past have been very comprehensive. I'm excited to see the study that's coming up that you're going to do the entire district, look at the entire district as a whole. I think that maybe looking at boundary changes, looking at transportation. I know that the district in the past has stopped the east-west transportation that was there when I was a kid at Granite. But maybe that would be something that would help, redistribute the population better to better support schools. I know you guys have been at this a lot longer than I have, so this might be just a pipe dream. But I feel like educational opportunity is a priority, and I think we need to look at, I would look at, and I would work with you to look at, will closing a school actually produce savings and long-term savings, and what will the effects be on the community? I would look at every opportunity or every alternative I possibly could before closing a school. And look at combining programs, inventing programs, and different community uses. When I talk about partnering with different nonprofit groups in the community, it might not be such a terrible thing if we have a lower population. Maybe we could redevelop our expectation of what public education is and have, like the families community centers now have English classes for parents. We could have financial, literacy programs in some of those empty classrooms. So I think there's a positive way of looking at this versus just closing the school. But ultimately, student outcomes are the most important. So I think that if at the very end of everything, if we involve our communities with full transparency from the very beginning, and I think honestly, our community, Granite District has a lot of really smart people. So I think that if we could talk to people from the very beginning, other people might come up with a better idea than the companies that you've hired for the projections. So that might help out too. If all the data shows that closing a school would benefit students and their future and their outcomes, and we've exhausted all other resources and been completely transparent, then I'd be for doing that.
Okay, you have a couple seconds left. Is there anything you want to add to the questions we asked that you didn't get to include?
I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. I never thought I'd be able to be here to do this, and so I'm really excited for whatever happens. I think that this is a really neat opportunity for the district, and we will miss you, Julie. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
The top candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for these interviews will be extended within the next day. The candidate selected for the position will be officially appointed during the general board meeting convened later that evening of September 1st. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st, 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and take oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th, 2027.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a saunter for about 15 minutes. Your timer. What's your welcome timer? All right, this is Matthew Tracy, correct?
Correct, that's
Okay.
me.
All right.
Good or bad, that's me.
Thank you for being here. I have a short statement to read, and then we'll go ahead and get to our questions.
Cool.
Granite School District's boundary includes approximately 400,000 residents and serves some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided during your interview so that you can monitor the length of your responses. Okay. Question number 1. The board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here, and just privileged to be with you. To answer your question, for me, I like to think of a school board as being almost like an arranged marriage. Nobody gets to choose who they sit with. The voters choose that. And we're all kind of put together, and whoever's elected, we got to work together. And so, as I've kind of observed this board from a distance, what I see is a lot of people from a lot of diverse backgrounds bringing a lot of diverse perspectives to the table. And I hope what I can do is supplement your experiences with my own experiences. And I do think I bring some unique things to the table. I think the first thing I'd like to kind of cover three of those aspects. First is my experience as a student. I am a product of public education. I owe my very existence to public education. I was raised at the mouth of American Fork Canyon. I grew up in a family that struggled. We were constantly on the verge of losing our house, and it was difficult growing up. I know had I lived somewhere else, I probably would have become a statistic. Instead, I attended high-quality public schools, and every day I got on the same bus as everybody else, and it didn't matter if I was competing against the president of the Bank of American Fork or the head of the Discard dealership. We were just all competing on a level playing field. And I took away from that experience is I was in that environment, and I thrived. I took multiple AP classes, got 5s all over the place. I became state debate champion. Went on to get accepted to Brown University of Chicago, waitlisted at Yale. Went to Brown, graduated with degrees in history and a focus on colonial Latin American studies. After that, went on to WashU. So I think the first thing I bring to the experience is my experience as a student. And what that does is it makes me incredibly invested in public education. Second thing I bring to the table is my experience as a parent. I have 4 different children, all of whom have attended the school. Not horribly great with time, so I'll speed that up, I apologize. But in terms of my experiences, my kids have all attended Skyline, Churchill. One of my daughters, I have 2 adopted children from Ethiopia. My first daughter, Eden, just absolutely thrived. My son, Johannes, really struggled. We ended up pulling him out of public schools and we sent him to a charter where he was with kids. He was adopted at the age of 7, grew up in an orphanage, and he blossomed. So, I have empathy. I understand that there's different kids with different experiences. In terms of my own professional experience, I have a background in architecture. I've worked in the profession for over 25 years. There's a lot of things in architecture that I think would be incredibly valuable on a school board. You guys are, you have a lot of school deserts in the district. As the district kind of grapples with these questions, a lot of these questions in terms of how you feel and reposition things are urban planning questions. I don't think anybody on the board brings that perspective to the table. Additionally, I'm always dealing with budgets. In my profession, you got to balance the budgets. You don't stay in business. I'm very good at land planning, facilities management. You guys have that to the hilt. I additionally have a great deal of experience on a number of board of directors, the Selma Institute. I lead all of their feasibility studies, and in addition, the Selma Hadithi Foundation. So I also have extensive board experience, and I also have extensive experience in the community. During the course of the last year, I had events at my house where Doug Owens, Stephanie Pitcher, Julie Jackson, Carol Lear. I'm on first name basis with all the major mayors. And one of the things that that experience has given me is a pulse of the community that I live in. And, you know, one of the things the board members also know how to do is also have the ability to know what's going on in their own community, so that not only that they listen, but they also understand when the loudest voices in the room are starting to take over and when it's appropriate to say no. And I think, you know, we've dealt with some of these problems in Granite. I think that actually came front and center. I think there was a lot of outrage over the closures. It was understandable. There was a need to listen to them. But I'll tell you what, after knocking 1,000 doors, the experience I saw on the street is some of that was a little distorted too. And I think it's also important as a board member to have an eye to that. So there's my answer.
Thank you. Number 2, what would your goals be and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
Well, I'll go out by saying, first of all, is my goal is the first thing is I have to look out for my own district. If I'm fortunate enough to be selected, I'm here to support the kids in my district because that's who I'm representing. And, you know, when we talk about what it is public education can become, the simple fact of the matter is the crown jewels of Utah's public education system reside in my district. It's just a fact. Whether it's Skyline, it's Olympus, it's Wasatch, students from across the state compete to be there. My district is facing, as the entire school district is facing, is some tremendous structural challenges that need to be confronted and faced, not just by telling people what they want to hear, but also being honest about those challenges and addressing the underlying causes. So I think in terms of my immediate goals, when I look at my own district, one of the first things that I see is there's a culture. And a lot of these legacy schools, these parents, I just know from my own experience, going to Morningside, going to Skyline, these parents are highly invested in these students, and it shows in the results. That's why people want to be there and come to our schools. So I'm not really particularly that invested in the school buildings themselves. School buildings come and go, who cares? You know, it's the parents that are attached to that, not the kids. Kids are resilient. Kids, they're like rubber bands, you know, if you treat them right. But what I think is important as we deal with these structural issues is preserving that culture. And I think it's a very fine balancing act. And I think in order to do that, you know, I think we do have to confront a number of issues. I think as we do this, though, I think the other thing that needs to be said is not just what goes on in my district. This is, I think, one of the best things that Granite has going for it. One of the things that's highly undervalued, as I've listened to a lot of these debates, is the economies of scale that this district has. Granite School District is a district that's pushing around $1 billion in revenue nearly. And there's a lot of things that it affords that benefits everybody. You know, it's not, one of the things that's very unique about Granite is not only the economies of scale, which afford just these impressive benefit programs for teachers, for students that just simply could not be had in a smaller district. The other thing that goes on in Granite is it's really the only government organization I know of in all of Salt Lake County, maybe aside from the county, where the east side and the west side residents are required to collaborate and get along and listen to each other. And if we're gonna all get through this situation, it's imperative that we do it. Our success is tied to each other. You know, so I think that's incredibly important as well. In terms of, you know, obviously as we do these things together, I think my goals are, as we confront these things, we have to, you know, basically create a sustainable foundation. These numbers are just radically upside down right now. You know, in my own district, not only are the numbers upside down, as I've literally sat down with every single principal in my district and, you know, just interviewed them to see the school from their own perspective. And the thing that just actually shocked me when I did it was I was realizing is not only are our numbers upside down, when you start factoring out of boundary kids, and Wasatch is 70% out of boundary. These kids go away. We're toast. In addition, in terms of, you know, people in my district like to talk about, hey, we're going to take our money and go home and take our toys. It's like, guys, we're being financed by the West Side. We need these guys. And it's up to us to start listening to them as well, because, again, our destinies are tied. I think that's fundamental and important to solving this. And I think as we kind of come into it, I think the decision to hire this out of, this consulting firm, I think it's an interesting one. I need more information. I'm a little concerned that some of the decision-making may have been, outsourced to an independent agency, but I think the fundamental idea of trying to get community involved, buy-in, I think is important. I do have concerns though long-term. I mean, geez, it's going to be 4 years till you have any of these schools even looking at closures. I mean, these problems are just going to get worse. And at a certain point, we have to start being honest with each other about that. I think the other thing in terms of my own goals is I think community outreach is also incredibly important. When you're on a board, you have to know your lanes, what it is the state legislature mandates you to do. But I think there's also a lot of opportunities as I meet with a lot of the local mayors. There's not really a lot that we can do about declining birth rates. Those are just kind of baked in. Maybe maybe some childcare. But the one thing that we actually can do in my district is affordable housing. And I think people on a school board establishing those lanes of communication, because there are a lot of very interesting affordable housing things going on. We affect each other. On a school board, I don't make those choices, but I communicate with these people, and understanding each other and how we affect each other is critical. So in terms of, my long-term goals, those are kind of it. Next.
Thank you. Number 3, what are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
My views are, I think it's important to understand one's lane. In terms of how the state allocates money, I don't really get a say in that if I'm on the board. There's certainly communication that goes on, but there seems to be a game being played nowadays where there's an active effort to destroy and dismantle public education in the state. Granted, as I observe it from the outside with the understanding I have a lot to learn, is constantly placed in a situation where they're given these just horrible budget deficits they've got to make up. And it's a problem. I really feel for you guys as I've watched you trying to deal with this. How do you go about doing that? I think, in terms of dealing with the things that we can actually control when we're placed in that situation, number one, government's got to be efficient. You got to be lean and mean. That's just the cards we've been dealt. But as we do that, I think we need to, keep an eye towards the things that are directly expressed in your own strategic plan. Staff retention is critical. Reducing, class sizes is critical. So I think there does come a point where this has been so compromised. Sometimes tax increases are necessary. I'm long-winded, I apologize.
I can give you 60 seconds if you would like to,
Sure,
to
I
answer
would
the
love
last
it.
question. Granite School District.
I'll strive for briefest.
Okay. Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
I think I've kind of touched on this largely already, but I think school closures are an inevitability. I think as we go about it, I think it's important to be strategic, though. I think, I've kind of expressed it already. As school closures come, I think preserving the culture in my district is important. But I think it's also important to be mindful of the other districts out there. A lot of people in my district are talking about, limited class sizes, which I think is horribly important. But at the same token, when you start keeping all these schools open, these things cost $1 million a piece. And at a certain point, we're not being equitable to people on the west side as well. So I think, it goes again to these economies of scale and understanding that we're all in this together.
Thank you. The top candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for these interviews will be extended within the next day. The candidates selected for the position will be officially appointed during general board meeting convened later on the evening of September 1st. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st, 2027. The newly appointed board member will formally be sworn in and will take the oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th, 2027, just so you're aware.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Janelle Williamson?
Yes.
Hi. Granite School District's boundaries include approximately 400,000 residents and serve some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided during your interview so you can monitor the length of your responses. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Here's the first question. The board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
I think one of the strongest qualifications right now is I've served on school community councils for 9 years, both elementary, junior high, and high school. So I've seen that process on a local level to where we are assessing the academic needs of a school using data, that performance data. We discuss as a board, the council. I really enjoyed that part where we're all working together trying to figure out what are the biggest priorities that our school needs. And from that, we then look at the land trust budget that is given to us and figure out how much money we can allocate to those different priorities. Usually it's one priority that can fit for some of these smaller schools. And that whole process has been wonderful to come together, start with throwing out different ideas, some that are contradictory, but then towards the end, as we meet every month, we come to a consensus and figure out the best way forward for that year. Another way that I have experience is I have worked in the Granite School District for 9 years as well, as a paraeducator, a PLC assistant, and a substitute teacher. And so I've seen that on the ground experience in the schools. I've been the parking lot duty when rain is dumping down and making sure that the kids are safe in that. I've had countless conversations with teachers and principals and trying to hear their perspective on things. My substitute teaching has taken me to 18 different schools in the district in 5 out of the 7 precincts. And so it's given me a good opportunity to see how the needs may differ throughout the school district. And I think that's something that I can bring to a board, having that on the grounds, already understanding some of the lingo, some of the needs within the schools, to bring it to the board. Again, though, making sure that we come to consensus on our decisions. I think that would be my answer for that one.
Great. What would your goals be, and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
I think my immediate goals would be to get up to speed. I do not claim to know everything that the board does. I've been going to board meetings, trying to learn. I had a great conversation with Todd last board meeting afterwards, trying to understand how property taxes work and within the system or within our school district, how it all works. So my first priority would be to get up to speed, study the budget, learn from your experience. I understand that many of you, the board, will not be continuing in January. And so I would love to hear your experience and learn from you. I also, as a priority, want to build relationships. Community councils is a great way to start to get to know the schools and the local problems, and the local successes, find out what's working and what's not. In the mid-level time, I'd like to communicate more with state legislature. I know there's a lot of needs that aren't really understood from a legislative perspective. We've had some financial concerns with in our district because of mandates that have come unfunded. These have we need funding for mandates that come through. I plan on spending time reviewing academic performance data. I am a data-driven person. I love science, I love data, and that helps me to see where the efforts of our board are best spent or where policy needs to be changed. Yeah, and I'm an active listener. That's the last thing I wanted to say. I plan on spending a lot of my time at the beginning listening. Thank you.
Okay. What are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
Well, I mean, there are the last 3 board meetings that I attended, I have noticed that there have been discussions about the financial strain that the school district is undergoing. And these are due to many factors. I mentioned unfunded mandates is one. There have been many factors that went into the special education budget being strained and needing a reallocation of resources. And funding options right now are limited. We've got the state appropriated money, property taxes, land trust for local schools, TSSA, and grants. So my position on financing public education, including taxation, well, first, make sure that our programs that we are funding are working well and the funding is appropriate to the programs. If there's anything that needs to be assessed within the budget, that would be my first priority. And then I just sat and watched the Truth in Taxation board meeting last week. It is a reality. If money coming in doesn't meet the needs, there may need to be taxes. But I hope that's not the go-to immediately.
Okay. Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
I understand that this is a real need, and my neighborhood school was Eastwood Elementary. My kids are older, so I wasn't particularly in Eastwood at the time, but it's a hard thing that I see the board had to deal with last year. There's still a lot of stress about that topic. However, it's a reality. Populations are declining. I've watched the population in our local schools decline over the years. And even with that, I mean, some schools are doing amazingly well academically with that. But I don't know that that should be the only deciding factor. I think academics need to be part of the decision making. How the students are performing is part of the decision making, not just finances. But I would be committed to finding solutions to this. It's not a bad, bringing school communities, merging them together, it's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as the communities feel vested in it And as long as the communities feel like they have a part in the decision-making, I would love to hear more of this problem-solving dialogue from the communities that would be affected by this.
Okay. You have a couple minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to add to anything we asked that you didn't get a chance to include?
I would like to say that if you look at my resume, education has been part of my life. Advocating for education, being a teacher in multiple different ways has been part of my life, in my adult life. And one of the reasons why I'm stepping forward for this position is because I really want to advocate for education. I think our children are our future. They are our future leaders. There are decision makers that are coming. And when I am teaching in my STEM class at Eastwood, it just blows my mind to watch all these kids with such amazing ideas for problem solving, even if they may be unrealistic. The fact that they're thinking about all these different things, that gives me hope of our children, and it is worth the investment. In my time, it's worth the investment of money and effort for these students. I have a lot of experience in that I would love to share with and work with the board in helping us with our financial and policy decisions.
Thank you. The top candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for these interviews will be extended within the next day. The candidate selected for the position will be officially appointed during the general board meeting convened later that evening on September 1st. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st, 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and will take oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th, 2027. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. How's everyone doing?
Doing well, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good.
All right, is it Elena? Or
Elena.
Elena, okay, and Leopard, right?
Yep.
Okay, Elena Leopard.
Like
Welcome.
Def Leppard.
Oh, nice. All right, sorry, I'm just finishing up. Okay. Granite School District's boundaries include approximately 400,000 residents, and serve some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions that we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided for you during your interview so that you can monitor the length of your responses. Question number 1, the board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
I am uniquely qualified and very personally invested in this work. First of all, I'm a licensed educator. I spent 5 years teaching at Bonneville Junior High, which gives me firsthand classroom experience. I'm a parent with 3 kids, all who have gone to schools in the district. I have a son who graduated from Skyline, a daughter at Olympus, and a son at Churchill currently. I have a lot of board experience, which helps me to have experience with navigating difficult conversations and differences in opinion, and really helps me to collaborate with people and learn from people who think differently than I. I've been on PTA, community council. Currently, I have a board. I'm an executive director of a foundation, and I have served on many boards. I also bring a unique perspective. When I was 9 years old, I moved to this country, and I did not speak a word of English. So I was a multi-language learner, I believe is what we're calling it these days. And I had to learn English. And I also grew up in this community in Precinct 1. And I think I was the first immigrant refugee that many of my peers had met way back in the late 1900s when I was going to school. And so I have a unique perspective of being a parent in the community, an educator, as well as an immigrant and a refugee who was really supported and raised in this community.
Thank you. Number 2, what would your goals be, and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
Well, I think my goals and my passion aligns with the district mission. On the board, I will work with the board to create a learning environment where students are empowered to achieve their highest potential. That's the end goal of all the work that we do in education. That's my personal belief. I want to create community, and I love learning, and I love that part of the mission is lifelong learning. And I'm passionate about that. I would love for each of our students in Granite to have the skills and the opportunity, if they choose to come back to Granite to work and live and raise their kids here. That would be kind of a long-term vision. As far as the role of the board, I believe is to advocate for and support our educators, allocate resources to evidence-based instructional strategies, and hold the superintendent accountable for measurable results. And close our achievement gaps by making sure that all students, every single student in our district has access to the materials and an environment where they can succeed. I'll just throw in just a quick thing here. My personal experience in the classroom, probably the most impactful thing you did as a board that I'm eternally grateful for was your strategic placement of the legislative teacher workdays. That changed my life as a teacher, and I know it did for many teachers, and I just want to say thank you, and that's an example of just the way that the board directly impacts student outcomes by supporting our teachers.
Number 3, what are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
I think this is a sensitive topic. Obviously, inflation, there's a variety of financial situations in our district. So I want to make sure that I'm sensitive to that. And I think transparency is number one in any fiduciary responsibility, is making sure that everything is 100% transparent when it comes to financing. Public education is the heart and soul of our community. We need to work with legislators to keep public school funding in public schools. We need to highlight success stories, and I think Julia's done such a fantastic job of that, because I feel like when people see the good that's happening They recognize their tax dollars as an investment in our community, in our kids, in our schools, and are more open to changes when we do have to make them.
And question number 4, Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
It's a tough topic, especially for our precinct. 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, I was on the community council at Morningside Elementary, and it was when we were going through the reconfiguration process for the Skyline Network. So moving 9th grade to the high school and moving 6th grade to the middle school. That was a really great learning experience for me because there was a lot of collaborative work. So I got an opportunity to work with community councils of all the schools in the network versus just our council, and hear a lot of different perspectives. And I really learned the power of data-driven decision-making. And we consulted experts. We looked at data. We listened to parents and people's lived experiences. And at the end of the day, had to make some hard decisions that we were accountable for. And change is hard. And the parents, had a lot of feelings and emotions, and a lot of them, as you know, are targeted towards the board or the council that makes the decisions. One thing that I have found very helpful is my unique skill set of being able to connect with people, to listen to their emotions, their messages, their perspective, while not taking anything personally, which also makes me a great middle school teacher, thick skin. So being able to hear them and not take their comments personally, and my analytical nature helps me to use data to drive my decision making. And the community council experience 10 years ago really taught me that sometimes people are going to be upset with my decision, and that's okay. My son did go. He was the first 6th grader at Churchill, the first year they had 6th grade, and he had a wonderful experience, and I think our network has since really embraced the model, and I think the end result is definitely the best outcome for our students.
Thank you. You have just a few minutes left. Is there anything that you would like to add to what we've asked you, or any other considerations?
First of all, thank you. I appreciate the work that you guys do. I know it's heavy, I know it's hard and time consuming, and I am very grateful on behalf of myself, my kids, our community, for you, as well as all of the members of the Granite School District that work so hard for the benefit of our kids. I grew up in this district. I was raised by this community. I am grateful to be in a place where I have the opportunity to give back, to be here for this interview, to work in this district. We have some of the best teachers, administrators, staff. I'm a huge fan of the district, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to be here. I believe the district needs my unique perspective and skill set at this time, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Just so you know, the top candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, which is next week. Invitations for these interviews will be extended within the next day. The candidate selected for the position will be officially appointed during the general board meeting convened later on that evening of September 1st. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st of 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and will take oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th of 2027. Okay?
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you so much.
of on that. The one, It's funny, it's funny.
Howdy.
Hi. Colby Wilson?
This is me,
Okay,
yes.
great.
I'm named after cheese, I'm not joking. Mom craved it when she was pregnant with me, so.
All right. Granite Schools District boundaries include approximately 400,000 residents and serve some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answers. A timer will be provided during your interview so you can monitor the length of your responses. It's up here. Okay. Question 1. The board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
So this is where I'm a little strange. In college, I taught preschool. I've taught elementary special education, high school special education, middle school in various roles, and high school. I was an academic advisor at the University of Utah, and then I was a teacher specialist, so I taught adults. And then I worked at the State Office of Education doing data. So I have seen the entire stack vertically of our education system. So I feel like my perspective, it not only is it very broad, but because of some of my training, I can get deep in the weeds with instructional ideas. And plus, I wrote a lot of grants when I was at West High. To just fund, I was a biotech teacher there, and CTE, I taught concurrent, and just kept writing grants to do the financial side of that. It's interesting because my teaching experience, I quickly learned that if I had time to plan strategically, so I could start new programs. Like at West High, I started an internship program where I take students up to the University of Utah and get them jobs in labs, so that they were, well, they published papers and had patents. That's where we got those kids, right? During COVID, because I was teaching program, I was the default tech specialist for our school. So I was delivering computers and setting up wireless internet for students, and saw greater needs than just computers out in the community. So I worked with my team, district level, my superintendent, and my principal, and we set up a team support system, or family support system, to get families more than just technology. So we would connect them with state, county, city resources, and then work with that community too. So being in the community, and I got real comfortable doing home visits with those. Also started like early warning systems. So thinking strategically, building teams, coalition of the willing, so that we could make changes in schools that would benefit students' outcomes.
All right. What would your goals be, and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
This is an interesting question because having worked in the district and at the state with a lot of data, I'm always going to go to the data. Granite District is full of experts and tons of data. So between listening to the experts who are here in-house, the data that Granite School District possesses, and then the constituents. Looking at casting a wide net, we used to cast a wide net, see where we could make improvements, and then implement those. So in terms of supporting students, writing policies that would support the goals, and that's twofold in that, right, the policies have to be specifically aimed at the goals. They have to have boundaries so that we stay within the confines of the framework to achieve those goals, yet it has to remove barriers so teachers, administrators can do their jobs. And so for me, it's working with district schools and board members to achieve those policy ideas.
What are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
This is where I'm also broken. My first principal was Emerson Boyd, who I just loved. He had the idea that if as a teacher or as a school or a school district, we did our jobs well, people would be okay paying a little extra now and then to support schools. So the proof is in the product, that if we as an education entity or operational unit provide a good product and people enjoy their high school experience and family members feel supported, then the taxes become an easier conversation. And saying that, it's super complicated. I know the financial needs, and I know how that affected me as a teacher when we couldn't afford things. I mean, I was directly affected with some of that. I saw how increases in taxes can affect families. So taking all of that into balance is a very complicated issue. And so again, it's listening to the experts, it's listening to the board, it's listening to constituents to try and come up with to negotiate a successful outcome for taxation.
Okay. Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
So this is an interesting question because I was actually at the state when these numbers started to come through. So I was part of the committee. I was on the team that ran the data to see it statewide. So I saw it everywhere. It was really interesting discussions we were having at the state. In terms of school closures, again, it's super complicated and there's all sorts of voices. So to me, there are several buckets. There's financial buckets, there's financial is the big one because to me, there's a push-pull. There's a gain that can be had for closing a school because then other schools can receive other funding, right? So there's some benefit to it too. But then you have to look at the cost of the effects it'll have on families, the effects it'll have downstream, like thinking strategically, what it's going to look like in the next 20 years, building usage, and then things change, and are we flexible enough to adapt to those changes? And then there's student needs. If student needs are being met, that makes things very complicated, and I think that's part of the equation. And taking all of these into consideration, and then making hard choices, and that's part of the job, right? It's making hard choices.
Okay. You have a couple minutes left. Is there anything you would like to add to anything we asked or that you didn't get a chance to include?
I would like to say, in my career, I've had the benefit of being part of a lot of teams, and I've been very lucky in my mentorship I just got really lucky in the people who I found or who found me. Just wonderful educators who I've adapted and adopted to their language, because their sole focus was on students and how to help them. We had this at West High, where I spent a lot of time. We had this great teacher named John Engel. He called them go-at kids. And so he had this idea that if you see a kid and they're eating lunch by themselves, that's a go-at kid. You go at that kid. And so I like the idea of going at problems. I like the idea of taking them head on and working with the team. We gathered a coalition of willing at West High, and we went forward and found these kids. And we made sure every kid had a place to land, whether it was my first robotics team or whether it was John's chess team or whether we got them involved in sports. Everywhere a student had a place to land. That carried on. That carried on later because when I was a specialist in canyons, teacher engagement is one of the best ways to keep students in school, right? Research shows that teacher engagement, building a relationship with a student, is the way to keep kids in school. So I went into a school and I noticed a bunch of ID cards that were not, it had been, man, we were in October. So they hadn't gotten their ID cards, which means they weren't going to football or basketball or volleyball games. And so I worked with a team on that where we would interview those kids to figure out what was going on. Why aren't you going and getting your, and they just didn't feel engaged in the school. So then we took it to another level and we started doing classroom observations, but we were really following these kids around. And it was fascinating to me because there were students that could make it through an entire high school day without ever talking to an adult. And it wasn't the adults. The teachers were great. They're trying hard. These kids were just really good at hiding. And so in terms of goals, like finding those kids and giving them a place to land so they feel like they have a place to be is very important to me. I firmly believe in that.
Thank you. All right. The top candidates will be invited for a second interview on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for these interviews will extend within the next day. The candidate selected for the position will officially be appointed during the general board meeting convened later that night on September 1st. The commencement date for the appointment will be January 1st, 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and take oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th, 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Good luck.
Hello. Oh, it's very loud. I won't speak quite so vocally.
Marilyn Tapp, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Marilyn, thank you for being here tonight. That's your welcome.
There's the clock. I'm looking, I'm going, they said there was a clock.
Yes, there is a clock. Granite School District's boundaries include approximately 400,000 residents and serve some 52,000 students in our public schools. We have 4 questions we think go to the heart of serving on the board. There will be approximately 3 minutes per question. You will have a total of 12 minutes for your answer. Timer will be provided for your interview so that you can monitor the length of your responses. Question number 1. The board functions as a governing body that must work together to establish policy and make decisions for the entire district. What specific qualifications and experience will you bring that will strengthen the Board of Education?
So I've spent most of my career on the inside of public education, both 20 years as a classroom teacher, as an administrative intern, assistant principal in both Salt Lake City and Granite School Districts. I returned to school to get my doctorate in educational leadership and policy, which really gave me a background on the interconnected policy and resource decisions that are now before the board. So many of them are before the board. I'm now a professor in higher education at Weber State University in Ogden. And I have lots of experience. One of my favorite classes to teach is the policy class to students who are right now getting their Masters of Education in educational leadership. And we have a wide variety of students who are currently doing that. But the policy lens that I gained from my doctorate has really driven all of my work since then. In addition, I have an MBA degree and worked in industry for several years, and before I saw the light and came to education, and I have a lot of experience with reading and developing budgets, so that is not something that is frightening to me at all. I've had experience in the classroom level, in the building level, and at the systems level. And I believe the work of the board is at the policy level, which is at the systems level. And that's my current position and where I want to devote the rest of my working career.
All right, question number 2. What would your goals be, and how do you see your role as a board member in supporting student achievement and outcomes?
I have a vested interest in this. My 4 children all graduated from Granite Schools. My two of my 4 grandchildren, the 2 that live in Utah, are currently students in Granite District schools. One of the biggest challenges that is facing, I think, student achievement is the fact that literacy, which is really the foundation of learning, the literacy rates of students in the Granite District are below the state averages. And I know there are many complications. When I looked up new numbers, I noticed that Granite is really, if not there yet, now approaching a minority-majority district. And lots of refugees and students who speak other languages, which are assets, but which also complicate teaching reading to students. So that would be my biggest priority. I was very impressed with the board choices in their recent taxation hearing and their funding priorities, that literacy, or the path to literacy through instructional coaches in the schools, through additional planning time for teachers, student-facing resources which can definitely help to improve literacy in the schools. I do think that even with this new funding, we still need to make sure that the teachers and those who are supporting them have all of the resources that they need, and that would be a continual goal for me to make sure that that is the case. And then also attendance is a challenge, and we know that attendance really is the springboard to graduation. And so we need to get our students in school. So one of my priorities would be to help to figure out ways to make sure that students had access to both getting to school and having the kind of experience there that is necessary so that they will want to come back the next day and the next week and the next month. It involves working with students and parents, both. One of the really wonderful assets of the district is really the cultural and linguistic diversity that is here. And I am a huge supporter of that. And I'm not an expert on this, but I know that we have to find more ways to use that diversity to support student achievement. And that would be a goal of mine as well. I feel like I'm talking really fast.
Not at all. Number 3, sorry, excuse me. What are your views on financing public education, which may include taxation?
This is a very interesting question, and it's very interesting the way that you asked it. So there's no U.S. constitutional mandate to support public education. That is left up to the states and local entities. So unfortunately, we have been in a favorable position to have received funding from the federal level. That appears to be declining at the current time. So funding is left up to local and state entities. And as was very evident in all of the information that you presented in the recent taxation hearings, unfunded mandates from the state legislature really have put the district in a bind. And I will also say that now working at the higher education level, that unfunded mandates, although different than those for a local school district, are also causing angst for us. So everything is more expensive. Groceries are more expensive, housing is more expensive, transportation is more expensive. So it is not surprising that schools are more expensive. Again, the student-facing reality, funding priorities to support students and their achievement and their growth are very important. So I personally support the decision that the majority of the board made to increase taxes. I know it wasn't overly popular with some people, but in this particular case, I don't think there was another reasonable choice that could have been made.
Okay, thank you. Number 4, Granite School District has been and continues to experience declining enrollment. Please describe your position and approach to addressing the potential for closing schools throughout the district. What priorities will influence your decision?
I have been both a parent in one instance and an educator in another instance in a different school district when the district went through this exact same process of closing schools. It is a very, very, very fraught and difficult process. I think that the choice to have an outside population study is a good one. I would use the data from that study in all of my decision-making priorities. I would like to use information on staffing, ratios, and program viability, and student needs I wouldn't want it just to be budget focused, but actually to look at all the aspects that are involved in closing a school. I think the thing that was missing in both of the instances that I had a personal experience with is that there was no transparent framework that established a clear process for the evaluation of all the information and the ultimate decisions that were made. I believe that that is key from the outset, that very clear metrics and rubrics have to be established so that no last-minute input from either the community or the board can sway the decision that is made. That clear, transparent metric and rubric is highly, highly important. No one in the community ever wants to close schools. No one. But unfortunately, with the enrollment cliff that is already evident here in public education, and we will now see in higher education in 2030, it probably is the reality that schools have to be closed. With that said, I think we need to take a broader view about what constitutes the best approach to deciding what characteristics are used in determining which schools will be closed. Like I said before, no one likes to close a school. It is the most emotionally draining experience that you can ever have, either as a parent, an educator, an administrator. And I have never sat in your seats, but I suspect that it was equally as emotionally draining for you as it was for everyone sitting on this side of the dais there. I would do my best to be completely above board and not have some kind of a hidden or secret agenda that I was trying to play out to support one school or another. I would try to follow the transparent.
You go ahead and finish.
I can finish my sentence.
Yeah.
The transparent framework that was set up and be very conscientious about doing so.
Thank you so much for being here. The top candidates will be invited for a second interview next week on September 1st, 2026. Invitations for these interviews will be extended within the next day. The candidate selected for the position will be officially appointed during the general board meeting convened later on the evening of September 1st. The commencement date of the appointment will be January 1st of 2027. The newly appointed board member will be formally sworn in and will take oath of office during the board meeting to be held on January 5th, 2027. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for your time. You must be tired by now.
Sorry. So you leave and I just spread out. We're going to take about a 15-minute saunter break. Okay, sorry, we're going to resume. Technical difficulties have been overcome.
Yes.
I'm going to turn the time over to the superintendent real fast.
I would like to thank those of you who are in attendance, the two of you, but more importantly, the general public who may watch this. This is a really difficult process. If you've ever been in an interview before, you've never had your candidacy discussed in open public meeting. And that is the requirement and the intent of the law. So we've reviewed this a dozen or so times. We've been arguing that up until the meeting started about what the intent is, and we wanted to make sure that we had a fair and concise process. So each of these board members was tasked with the ability to input their own scoring and adjust those scores through the interviews to make sure they were consistent. They don't have access to each other's data, so they weren't tainting one another. So again, we're trying to create a very transparent process by which board members could express, trying to narrow the scope of our pool from 11 wonderful people who were willing to put their name in for this position. So it does put the board in a bit of an awkward position, and I just want to put that disclaimer out to the public watching or watching this later. It's an awkward and challenging position to have to discuss the merits of a candidate publicly. And I don't think anybody really wants to discuss the strengths and weaknesses of an individual candidate, but that is the intent of the law, that they come together as a board and have that open and honest conversation. So we do have the scoring. It was our intent that you make any adjustments to that scoring prior to discussions, and then we could share who the top candidates were based on where there's a natural break in the scoring in and of itself. So that we're only discussing the top candidates, whether that's the top 2, top 3, top 4, depending on where the scoring cuts off at a natural place. And then again, we're not voting tonight, but the desire is to extend an invitation for further conversation with the board's choice of either 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 candidates, whatever you would desire, based on the data as it's been presented. So again, that's an invitation. We're not voting on anything tonight. I want to make sure that's very distinct and clear to the public that we're trying to be compliant with the law, again, as awkward and challenging as it can be. So with respect to that, I do have some scoring here, and if you want to make any last minute adjustments, or if you've already had the opportunity to do so, I'm happy to share where the natural break is at this point in time and share the names of those candidates. I would not do so in any particular order. I'm not going to do worst to first, for instance. I'm just going to randomly share that information. Are there any questions before we get going?
So how are you deciding where to cut off that?
Where there is a natural break.
Oh, there is a natural break.
There is.
Okay.
So there is a distinct break between our top candidates and the lower tiered candidates. Should I proceed?
Go ahead.
Okay, without deference to, I'm just going to refresh and make sure this data is up to date and accurate. Okay. I'm just going to put these out in alphabetical order by last name. Is it Elena Leopard? Then Marilyn Taft. Benjamin, how do I say his last name? Ungricht. And the last candidate is Janelle Williamson. So I'll repeat those again. Again, that was in alphabetical order, not scoring order. Elena Leopard, Marilyn Taft, Benjamin Ungricht, and Janelle Williamson. And I apologize to Benjamin for massacring his name. So I turn it back to you, Board President, for any discussion on those candidates.
So we'd like to open this up. I'd like to repeat that this means that we will not be changing our scores. The question is, do we want to have just 2 candidates come back in? Or are we okay with all 4 of them coming back in next week? Is there anything that anybody would like to say or comment on this before we move on?
I just say thank you, and I would like 4 to come in. So, but thanks to all the people that came in and talked to us. And it's just interesting. It was wonderful. We had wonderful people line up and apply. Thanks.
And I would support 4 as well. Just also want to add, like my top half of the candidate pool on my side, the scores were very, very close. I feel like there was a lot of experience in the pool and a lot of skills that people bring to the table. So mine, at least, were very, very close on the, I guess, top half. So, but I'm good with 4 because of that. I feel like there's some. I think it would behoove us to dig a little deeper on a few more people.
Just a little bit personal note here that I've been blown away by our candidates. I think we've had spectacular people here, and it's made me say to myself, wow, you should have resigned a while ago, because there are some great people here, and they're going to bring some really, whoever it is going to bring some really great ideas, new talents, new abilities, new thoughts. I think it's going to be really great for Granite, no matter where we land on, which one of these 4 we land on. And I want to make sure that all those people who applied know that we really value what they've brought to the table. So many of those people have spent so many hours in service and work and effort on behalf of students, and I hope that you'll continue, and that you'll also continue to be engaged, because I know that just from interviewing that you've probably learned a lot, and that your perspective is going to be valuable. That said, I also support moving forward with all 4 of these candidates. I would like to hear from all 4 of them. And I think that's it.
Clark, did you have anything? You do not have to feel obligated to say anything. It's up to you.
Will you come back to me?
Yep. Karen?
I also want to thank everybody. It's nerve-wracking to do any interview. It's especially nerve-wracking when your interview is actually recorded and becomes part of a public record. That is not, there's been a lot of discussion. It's a challenge, this process, because of everything being public. Most people, when you go into corporate world, your interview is private. The discussions and the choice surrounding whoever is selected to fill that role in whatever corporation, that's also confidential. And now all of a sudden we have to have this public, open conversation about the very people that we just heard from. And it is, Ben already said it, but it is awkward. That being said, I do want to appreciate all the efforts and for everybody who did come and put on their best and gave us their best answers to those questions. Hopefully the public has noticed that they were very deliberate questions of the challenges facing Granite School District currently. And so we didn't take this process willy-nilly. It was very thought out and questions gathered on the very challenges we're facing. So thanks to everybody for putting their best foot forward. I particularly put the scores a little higher of those who drilled down to very specific examples regarding the questions and so those were the leading candidates. For me, I appreciated when they dug deep and made their examples very specific to the question that we're trying to get at. So that's all I have to say.
I just want to also express my appreciation for the candidates that we had here. I've been in that spot, and it's very nerve-wracking to look at 7 other people and explain how you feel about public education and what you think you bring to the table. And so I just appreciate their willingness to do the hard thing and come and be interviewed for this process. That being said, I feel like I'm very I think having 4 candidates to come back for second round interviews is great for me. I think we can find out more about them and what they can bring to the board. Also, on my scoring, just so other board members know, I tend to score high because I feel like I want to give them the best. If they answered, like Karen said, in depth, I gave them a higher score, so I tend to score higher, just in general, just if you're wondering how I score, so.
Claire, go ahead.
I have 2 comments. One is I respect that there's a natural break at 4 candidates, so I will support bringing back 4 for further interviews and further discussion. I doubt it will come as a great shock to the public that I'm not a huge fan of this format and process. I am confident, based on the counsel that we've received from our legal counsel, that we are in compliance with the law. I'm not a fan of this law that we are bound to adhere to. I think it's a backwards process. I'm not, it's inconsistent, in my opinion, with best practices to identify the leading candidates. So I just wanted to have that on the public record for whatever hopeful purpose it may hold with state law in the future, that I think we can do so much better for a better process. Thanks.
All right, thanks, everyone. Just to add my part to this, I was looking for people who, I was very impressed. First of all, I have been in that seat, and I know how nerve-wracking it is, and that you forget half of what you wanted to say and all the stuff. So I get it. So thank you for all of the candidates for putting themselves out there. I know this is very tough. I was looking for people who clearly have been involved and understand the community in the schools and understanding the challenges that we have here in Granite that are very unique to us and not the rest of the state. So, and I think we've had some really strong candidates, 11 strong candidates that really are genuinely very passionate about their community and passionate about what they do. So I appreciate that. But that is reflected in my scores. So, no. I also support the top 4, bringing the top 4 back. So, if there's no further discussion, though, we have reached the end of our agenda, and without objection, I'll go ahead and stand adjourned.